Now I would like to introduce Damon Waters, Program Specialist with the Office of Family Assistance. Damon?
Thanks, Megan, and good morning or good afternoon to everyone. I'm glad everyone was able to make their way to today's Affinity call. We've had great experiences working with all of our sites within the EYES community of learning, and we're very excited to have Washington, D.C.'s team to come on and talk about the activities they've been investing in, even before the community of learning with regard to their targeted mobility coaching program. So instead of taking up too much time, I want to just bring on Ms. Agnes Benson, who is the Supervisory Vocational Development Specialist for the TMC team and the Department of Human Services Office of Work Opportunity and Family Resource Center. Agnes?
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. So to get started, the overview of the presentation, we will have we will speak about the DC TANF program, and then we would talk about our targeted mobility coaching model, follow up with key principles and program goals. And we will also have a customer here for a customer self-testimonial and, of course, Q&A. So to get started, the DC TANF program, up to now, from February up to now, we have assisted 11,830 families and 20,000 children. So we are proud of the work that we do here at DHS. First, we're going to talk about some key policy changes that we've experienced here at DHS. As you can see on your screen, effective April 1 of this year, there was no time limit, which means that families receiving TANF, the time limit was eliminated, as well as increased benefits for customers that are longer than 60 months on TANF. Those benefits were increased, as well as reduced sanctions, which means not more than 6% of the entire household will receive a sanction in that household. And just a little bit of background on that. The district TANF program has evolved over the last 6 years, and we had 3 challenging, you could say, sort of punitive elements, which included a 3-level sanction with a grant reduction of 20%, 50%, 100% for noncompliance. As a result, the DHS looked at that and realized that that was unacceptable without a hardship extension. So what we did, we formed work groups to provide recommendations to our mayor on a new policy to address this issue. The work groups included customers, providers, advocates, council members, and their staff, as well as DHS employees. And that's how we came up with these 3 changes here. The work groups, to get the customers buy-in, we hosted 4 listening sessions, 4 community dialogues, and 3 working group sessions. So we're just excited about how we're able to keep that cash into the household. DHS has always used a person-centered service delivery, as you can see on your screen. As you notice here is that the top layers, the applications and TANF comprehensive assessment is the first thing we do for our person-centered service delivery. Followed by that, we have our individualized responsibility plan, of which you will hear a lot about during this presentation. And of course, our support services and our service delivery. And what we found, as you see highlighted here, is barrier mediation with our families. We really wanted to work with them with their stressors and their barriers. So that kind of led us into the discussion about the coaching model. And that's how we began to birth targeted mobility coaching. So speaking of coaching, here's a little bit about DHS's coaching timeline. So after this slide, we're going to have our poll question number 1, and then followed by that, Jennifer Lowe from Empath will finish our DHS coaching history timeline. So get started on how coaching evolved for us. In June 2016, the current program manager at that time felt the need to expand our services. To expand our services to be more involved, even more person-centered with our families. So a team was formed, which included staff, and we created a presentation. The presentation was given to management, and management instantly approved. They were excited about the idea how we can work to get families more engaged, to help them through their stresses and barriers and be even more purpose-centered. In July 2016, we began our staff recruitment, and we had extensive training. Training such as how coaching can enhance case management, family development, and family-centered approaches, unified case planning, home visits, and community visits, echo mapping. So we did extensive training with our staff. In August 2016, that's when we decided to distribute the caseload and start our coaching process. And our next slide, before we get to our next slide, we're going to have a polling question here. And the polling question is, which of the following have you offered or planning to offer staff members to support coaching practices? So which of the following training? So we'll give you time to answer, and then we will move forward with Jennifer Lowe from Empath, and she will finish out the DHS coaching history timeline. So we will continue. And so I would like to introduce Jennifer Lowe from Empath.
Hi, everyone. Thanks, Agnes. This is Jennifer Lowe. I'm from Empath, and I've been working on the ICE project on the coaching team serving Washington, D.C. DHS, along with Azalea Israel from Public Strategies. At Empath, I oversee the Economic Mobility Exchange, which is a learning network of about 85 different nonprofit organizations and government agencies who are wanting to really learn together about our mobility mentoring model and share best practices and resources to really support one another in our efforts to help families and individuals in their journey to be able to reach economic self-sufficiency. And it was through the Exchange Learning Network that I first connected with DHS. So as Agnes shared, the department had already been making a shift into their person-centered coaching throughout the summer of 2016. And that fall, Deputy Director Tamitha Davis-Christian learned about Empath's Exchange from colleagues of hers at the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities and at the Moms Project. So she reached out to us, and she was really interested in joining the network to learn more about Empath's mobility mentoring model and to really seek some additional support with the department's coaching initiative. So they were, as you heard, were starting to refocus their services to a coaching approach. The department joined the network in February of 2017, which allowed them to be able to access our monthly webinars, an online member portal with resources and tools, and to also access some training and consultations. So DHS contracted a series of monthly consultations to be able to help plan with their implementation of their mobility mentoring informed model. And so the consultations ranged from research and shared data to virtual live demonstration of using the tools like the Bridge to Self-Sufficiency. And then in the summer of 2017, Empath had the opportunity to visit the TMC and Bridges team in DC to facilitate a 2-day foundational training called Mobility Mentoring Essentials. And this training is really designed for direct service staff to help them understand some of the theories and the perspectives, such as how chronic trauma and stress can really impact our executive functioning skills, to really understand these perspectives that inform the mobility mentoring model, as well as do some hands-on practice using the bridge and goal-setting tools and coaching approaches. After the training, we continued with the monthly webinars to be able to provide some additional support throughout the implementation process. And then in 2018, through the ICE project, we were able to continue our work with supporting the department's coaching initiative. They are focusing on 2 goals. They're strengthening the current coaching strategies and then incorporating a two-generational approach into their programming. So through the ICE initiative, this spring we were able to provide the TMC and Bridges teams with an advanced coaching training and some additional coaching and supervision to support and really build off a really strong foundation that they've already started to build, they've already created. So we were able to take it, I think, to the next level with them and build upon their great work. Agnes, next slide, please. Thank you. So we thought it would be helpful to provide a little bit of context on the mobility mentoring model. So I'm just going to share it very briefly with you all. Mobility mentoring, it's a goals-based coaching approach and suite of tools that are informed by research that shows that poverty causes chronic stress, which can act really as a roadblock to progress, really preventing people from being able to plan for their future success. And so mobility mentoring really aims to overcome these extreme stressors of poverty by improving focus, planning, decision-making. It's designed to help people set and achieve future-oriented goals despite all of the immediate challenges that they're experiencing with poverty. So what you see on the screen here is what we would consider the 4 essential elements of mobility mentoring. The first is the Bridge to Self-Sufficiency, and this is a one-page tool that's used to engage people in a conversation to really help them chart their path to economic self-sufficiency. And it helps families and individuals plan and reach and sustain their personal goals in what we would consider 5 essential areas in their life, and those are family stability, well-being, education and training, financial management, and employment and career management. And just by opening up conversations in each of these 5 areas, the Bridge actually allows people to see how each of those 5 areas or domains can impact each other, and it reinforces this, what we would call contextual decision-making, and it helps people to become future-oriented. So in the slides to follow, Agnes is going to be able to share the Bridge that they're using down in DC and how the department is using it as not only a tool in practice along with the folks that they're serving, but also a tool that they're using to measure and assess outcomes. And the second essential element is goal setting. So after the initial Bridge conversation, to kind of get a sense of where people are at in each of those 5 domains, the conversation tends to naturally pivot to where they want to go. And coaches are able to work with people to uncover their goals and their dreams and start beginning to think about the areas that they want to prioritize and how coaches can best support them and help strategize to really create a very concrete plan to achieve that goal. And so this process is then supported through goal worksheets and ongoing reflection during those meetings, during those coaching one-on-one meetings. The next element is incentives. So goals are incentivized with either cash or non-cash incentives. So when setting goals, coaches tie incentives to the completion of either the goal or completion of action steps that are leading to that goal. And incentives really try to develop a positive sense of self, motivating. It tends to build momentum in what can oftentimes be a really long process in the journey to reach that future goal of economic self-sufficiency, these very long-term goals. And then lastly is coaching. And although this is the last element that we have listed here, it really is the foundation for all of our interactions and all of our relationships with the people that we serve using a mobility mentoring model. And coaching is the mobility mentoring, within this mobility mentoring model is, I would say, distinct from some other forms of coaching that you might have heard of, like financial coaching or life coaching. I would say there's maybe 3 ways that it's particularly distinct. The first is that it operates within the mobility mentoring platform and utilizes the Bridge that Agnes will show you in a few slides. The second is that it's not focused in one domain of people's lives. So, like financial coaching might just focus on the financial aspect of someone's life. Rather, it pays attention to all of the interplay between all the different domains of life, like well-being and education and family stability and finance and career. And then finally, as you may have gathered, it's intentionally EF informed, EF meaning executive functioning informed. It really incorporates the understanding of the ways in which the stressors of poverty impact our thinking and behavior. And so all of those 4 elements that you see on the screen, they work together to create a mobility mentoring informed model. And so I'm going to turn it back over now to Agnes, who can continue with her presentation. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Jennifer. And as you can see here, it's the ICE conference that Jennifer spoke of. We're hard at work here, and that's how we were introduced to the DC coaching team. And it's been a wonderful journey, and we're working on those 2 goals there that Jennifer mentioned, incorporating the 2-gen approach and deepening and strengthening our coaching strategy. And we're enjoying learning these things, and it was just great to see, even with the 2-gen approach, how much TMC is already working towards that vein, and we just really enjoy learning it more and strengthening that. So just a little more on target mobility coaching as we go to the next slide. So target mobility coaching was developed intentionally, as we said, by our previous program manager, Tamitha Davis. It was intentionally developed to target services and resources and educational programs for our families. And the approach is a family-centered, strength-based approach. It's solution-focused and is infused with family development and mobility coaching. And the hope is that we can empower customers to change their situation by building skills and behaviors, do peer mentorship, and do the individualized coaching. So that is the goal, the aim, and the mission of target mobility coaching. At the beginning of the presentation, I believe an attachment was sent to you of our targeted intake form. And as we said, we start this model with the customer self-identifying what's important to them. So you can review that form as you will. And it just speaks to their career pathways, their barriers, what's important to them. So along this journey developing the coaching, we had to get the staff buy-in. So here I'm going to talk about this slide just a little bit, and then Ms. Brenda Hines, one of the coaches, and Ms. Sarah Teckley is going to talk to us about staff buy-in as well. So we allow the staff to be a part of the planning process. We use their skill and expertise to identify what area they're strong in, and then we talk to them and let them see and understand how the coaching process would be easier as we enhance case management. So again, Ms. Hines will talk about how coaching is different now than it was in the past, and Ms. Teckley is going to talk about the benefits of coaching and how it is good that the customer is with one person doing their whole TANF history. Ms. Hines?
Hi, everyone. I am Brenda Hines. I have been a case manager, vocational development specialist with the Department of Human Services here in Washington, D.C. since November 2013. As a result, I have been through the case management model and now the target mobility coaching model. And I want to say that although case management is about the individual, it does not, although not intentional, it is much more about the caseload rather than the individual person. We, as case managers, we are pressured, or were pressured at the time, to ensure that customers became engaged in an activity so that their benefits may not be decreased or terminated. As a result, I felt that quality of service was compromised. Although we worked with customers and we heard about their individual goals and aspirations, at times it was sidetracked because we were trying to ensure that they kept their benefits. To us, case management implied that we as the professionals guided the customer. We thought we met them where they were. However, as we look back, it was more like guiding them through an activity. This is what we have available because you said you wanted to be home health aid, for example. So this is what we have available. And even though we heard from them, you know, their barriers and other stressors they may have, not wanting to ignore it, but we were really pushing them to do this training. case management seems so standardized. We got the customers to do stuff. Some of them move through it quickly, and some of them more slowly. For those who moved through it quickly, that was the success. But what about those who did not move through as quickly as we wanted them to be? A lot of times they fell on the wayside. Disabilities, other stressors all came in the way, and our hands were tied at times. It seemed to us that we were diagnosing. It was so structured that there was diagnosis and treatment. And although we did extensive intake application processes where we did assessments and all that, we heard of the customers' work histories, their disabilities, and everything else, we diagnosed and we pushed them, for the want of a better word, into an activity. To some of us, this was painful. And when coaching came, that helped. Thanks. Oh, I'll now leave Ms. Sarah Teckley to talk about coaching.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sarah Teckley. I am also part of the Targeted Mobility Coaching Team, and I actually came in shortly after the implementation of this new model. So I'll be speaking mostly about what the TMC model looks like now. The way it's designed now is a customer will stay with one coach for the extent of their TANF life. And our goal is really to provide a more customized plan for that customer based on the goals that they self-identify, so that the end result is when the customer exits a program, they do so with a clear career path, and it's one that they've come up with themselves and that they've already taken steps towards. And of course, our hope is that they exit over income as well. I think what we hear often as coaches when a customer comes to us during our initial meeting is, what do you want me to do, or what do I have to do? And there's this notion that recipients of public welfare don't have goals, or that they're cavalier about their futures, but I think what's really happened is that they've become disillusioned by some of our systems and the ways that we interpret case management, and Brenda Hines spoke a lot about that, where the case manager really dictates what's best for them and their families. So by the time they come to us, that attitude of what do you want me to do, or what do I have to do to keep my benefit, it's just there. So with coaching, one of the first things that we have to do is change that conversation to what do you want to do? What are your goals and what are your family's goals, and how can I assist you in achieving those goals? So the idea is really that we're trying to shift the power differential and take more of a supportive, strength-based approach. With the TMC model, we use a number of different clinical tools to try to help create these plans and incite that motivation within our customers. So motivational interviewing is huge, asking those open-ended, probing questions to try to elicit change talk and greater self-awareness for our customers. Using the solution-focused approach to help our customers work through their challenges, which gives the customer the satisfaction of solving their own challenges rather than us giving them solutions to their problems. And I think the idea is to start doing this at that first meeting so that you get them to come back. Because just honestly, there really are a million other things that our customers could be doing, especially with our sanction level being so low in the district. It's only 6%, as Ms. Benson mentioned earlier. It's not motivation enough to with those punitive things. So the idea is to make the relationship one where they feel that it's worth their time. And I think this coaching model and these techniques that we have been using have really been effective in this way, because we have a good amount of customers in TMC across the board who are actually entitled to exemptions, who are choosing to participate on a voluntary basis. And I think that really speaks levels. I could speak to my caseload specifically. Almost 40% of my active customers, when they came in, so in our first meeting, they qualified for a federal exemption, whether they were in the 3rd trimester of pregnancy or they had a child under 1, but they chose to participate on a voluntary basis. And I would attribute a lot of that to this new coaching model where the customer is in control of their plan and these techniques that we're using to try to keep them engaged. And I also wanted to talk a little bit about how this coaching model has a lot of mutually beneficial aspects. So not only does the customer get a lot out of it, but the coaches do as well. You're building that rapport. You have more personal relationships with your customers and the families, to include the children, with the new 2-gen model. You'd have the elimination of customers being shuffled around to various vendors, which really limits that continuity for them. And it helps us with discussing their progress and helping them move through goal progression, and helps us build and continue that momentum. The customers develop greater self-awareness and enhanced autonomy, which is beneficial for both parties because the customer is really charged with taking action towards their desired result. And then we kind of get away from the coaches having that toxic and stressful boss image, where we become more of a guide or a resource rather than somebody to be feared.
Thank you, Brenda and Sarah. So with staff buy-in, I believe just having the staff in the beginning of the coaching model development and let them see how we've enhanced case management, I believe it has really helped even with accepting this coaching model. So as we move to the next slide, we're going to talk about TMC's model key principles, which were informed by empath. And just going to mention this briefly. We have individualization, where we see that there is no one-size-fits-all to path to economic dependence. It's just not one cookie-cutter way. And so for DHS, we term that as individualized guidance. To help this customer move to the next level in their lives, we need to have individualized guidance with them and let them see their worth and the assets they bring to the table. And we also, the next principle is horizontality, which here at DHS we call that teaming. So here, the path to economic dependence cannot be found in one health or human service silo. Effective service delivery must bridge the silos. So we try to bring every vendor or every person, organization attached to that customer's TANF history or life to the table so we can talk about with them their development, their career development. The third principle is time. And for us, time is coaching. That's the model. That's what we want to do. We want to coach the customer. And lastly is networking. In networking, no one can get to economic dependence alone. So with networking, we try to help the family develop healthy support systems, and that's where our echo mapping comes in. So that's what we use this principle for networking with the family, who they identify as who they want in their support system, and we help them to strengthen those areas. So moving right along, so as you can see, TMC, we have a lot of targeted moving parts. You see we have the family receiving TANF right there in the middle, and around the family we try to provide or infuse these areas of asset building assessments, which we will just talk briefly about later on the slides of assessments that we use, barrier remediation, just a number of moving parts. But we have that family in the center to keep it personal-centered. Here, and just as a snapshot, is our implementation model. And we're going to talk about it a little more, and do a deeper dive in each of these areas. Of course, we have our initial outreach, we have our intake and assessment, goal setting, mobility coaching, and of course, outcomes. So in the first 30 days, we try to guide the customers this way, but based on where they are, because we meet them where they are, from week to week is how we determine what the next week would look like. So we start with our customer pre-screening and the customer initial outreach, which are the telephone calls, the mailings, the community visits. Some prefer text, so meeting them where they are. Our second week is intake. And with intake, we have them come. Once we get them engaged, and we do all our assessments and our forms, again, based on where the customer is and how far they can go at that time. In our third week, we do our assessments. The fourth week is our detailed individual responsibility plan with our goal setting. In week 4, we continue that mobility coaching. if we're going to meet them in the office, at the library, in the community, wherever they need us to meet them, we continue that, and we constantly monitor our outcomes. So within this, we just didn't want to lose focus of how we must build relationships. So after this slide, we will have another polling question, our polling question number 2, but I just want to remind us, and I know all of us pretty much know this, some of the things it takes to engage a customer. As I said, we got to meet them where they are. We got to come from a strengths-based and solutions-based approach, because every customer comes to the table with assets. They're resilient. And we often remind our customers, you're taking care of a family of maybe 5 children, you get into school, you're monitoring the day. And we got to conceptualize the resistance in a manner that empowers them. So there may be some resistance, so let's roll with that resistance and turn it around and see, help the customer see how they can be empowered. So our next polling question before we go to the next slide is, what are some best practices to reach hard-to-engage customers that you have used? So we're going to pause here for a moment and give you time to answer. Okay, thank you for doing that. So the next slide is talking about we engage the customer, and now what does it take to keep the customer? So we just want to be mindful of our attitude, no judgment, authentic, and we're the customer's biggest cheerleader. Our approach. Show the customer their progress. So for us, we use the MOVES database, and we let them see their echo mapping, and we have a colorful career ladder that they put their steps on, and we just go the extra mile. And be transparent. Don't make big promises that you can't keep. And model the way for linking services. So again, here we are at a glance, that's our targeted case management or coaching at a glance, what we do in our pre-screening in weeks 1 through 4 of the month. So we're going to talk here a little bit about our assessments. And before Sarah and Ms. Hines talk about the assessments that we use briefly, we're going to have a polling question after this. But assessments, we found, are important, and it's an essential point of the family doing the coaching. It helps us to make decisions with the customer. It helps us to help them identify their goals, their family development. So we use our assessments in a number of ways, to identify needs, strengths, resources needed, to make linkages, and just to incorporate information to help the customers progress through the coaching tenure. So our next polling question is, how often are customer assessments completed in your organization? If you would just take a minute and choose which one works with your organization, that would be helpful. So we're going to pause for a moment while you do that. Thank you very much. So moving right along, as we said, we're going to talk about assessments. And Ms. Tekle and Ms. Hines are going to briefly talk about the assessments that we use. Ms. Hines will talk about our TANF comprehensive assessments, which is the TCA, and the ICASAs. And she will talk about Ms. Tekle will talk about the career assessment and the financial assessment. And I will wrap up with our Bridge to Success assessment and our MOVES database. So, Ms. Hines, you would like to start.
Okay, thanks, Ms. Benson. The TANF Comprehensive Assessment, or TCA, is a tool developed by the United States Department of Health and Human Services Administration for Children and Families, and it is tailored locally to meet the needs and partnerships of DHS's sister agencies and core service providers. Now, this tool creates a holistic, strength-based profile of the customer's skills, abilities, and challenges to employment and to their goals. The assessment also takes into account the customer's education, their education level, their experience, their work experience level, and their personal health and other barriers to employment. The output of the assessment will determine the services that are most appropriate for the customer, given his or her presenting circumstances. This assessment specifically determines which of the 4 service quadrants on the TANF Universal Service Delivery Model that is used here in DC that our customers will be referred to, whether it will be work readiness, job placement, barrier remediation and financial support, or barrier remediation and work support. And I will move on right on to the ECASA. Because as part of the TCA, DHS administers the ECASA's Employability Competency System appraisal for customers identified through the TCA. Now, the ECASA gauges the customer's reading comprehension and math levels. DHS enters the customer's scale scores, that is, for math and reading in the system, and the assigned provider can now access the customer's scores in cache. The provider will interpret the ECASA scores so that the customer is now placed in the appropriate educational program or instructional level. Now, because of the ECASA testing, a number of our customers can access even vocational education in the district, because some of them are shy to go into to visit an educational institute, but because they're doing the ECASA testing and feeling empowered, there is a score, I did well, my score is this or that, I am now feeling better to apply for a training program.
Thank you, Ms. Hines.
So one of the other assessments that we use for our customers who may be more ambivalent about what they want to do career-wise, we have a career assessment. It's an online assessment called My Next Move. And the assessment's really user-friendly. It presents a series of statements on a sliding scale that the customer will answer solely based on their interests. So it's a scale from strongly dislike to strongly like. And when they complete the assessment, the results will populate that say whether that customer is more enterprising or whether they would enjoy a more conventional career. And then based on what areas they score highest in, you could see what careers are compatible, and then that creates a discussion. For instance, somebody might take the assessment. The assessment may indicate that that person enjoys sciences and working with people. So that customer may say, well, you know, I've always thought about becoming a registered nurse. And so that creates discussion, and then you would use My Next Move or the career assessment to look up different careers, and it gives you career specs. So it'll give you the projected growth for being in RN, or the average salary for registered nurses, what skills you might have to possess to be successful in that field. And so then there's further dialogue that's created by looking at those things. And the customer will decide whether they think that that's something that they want to consider pursuing, or if they would like to look into other things that might match their interests, some other things that may have populated based off of the results of their assessment. What we also do is we have an accompanying career pathway. It's something that we do on paper, and it's almost like a person climbing a staircase. So there's these different levels where a customer is able to map out the steps to get to their final destination, which is their career goal. So that's something that we do with our customers, and it's something tangible that they're able to take away and look at. And it's almost kind of serves the same purpose as like a vision board, because they're able to refer back to that and look at the steps that they need to make and some of the steps that they may have already taken to try to achieve that career goal. We also do a financial assessment. So we have a tool called Your Money, Your Goals, which we get from the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. And it's really great because it's more than just an assessment. It's actually an entire toolkit, and it's really comprehensive. It allows you to gauge where the customer is and then cater the things that you are going to work on based on what the customer needs and wants. So it has everything from an income and spending tracker to information on how to dispute something on your credit report to eliminating debt and building credit. And I think the building credit part is huge because when a lot of our customers come to us and they do that intake assessment, that's usually something that they say that they want to work on, especially because a lot of our customers struggle with housing instabilities, and we know that credit is a huge thing when it comes to getting a lease, or even if home ownership is one of their long-term goals. So those are all things that we could work on using the Your Money, Your Goals toolkit. And honestly, it's probably one of my favorite things to do as a coach because the satisfaction that you see when the customers get to begin to feel that financial empowerment is really, it's just beyond words, because financial literacy isn't something that's talked a lot amongst our customers, and so they're kind of getting a first look at it, and they really are excited about it. So when a customer comes back to share some of their successes, you see it in their face that they really do feel that empowerment. For example, I was working with a customer who we pulled her credit, and we saw that she had a lot of student loan debt, and it was really affecting her credit score. So we used a toolkit to talk about debt consolidation. And when she came back to see me, she couldn't wait to share the fact that she was able to talk to her loan providers and consolidate that debt. And that was a huge achievement for her because she didn't know that she had the power to negotiate those things. So it helps us to continue to build on that intrinsic motivation for our customers, and it's a tool that we use on an ongoing basis, and as it fits the customer's needs.
Thank you, Sarah and Brenda. And to wrap up, our Bridge to Success assessment, which Jennifer mentioned early, on the next slide you will see that there. That's our Bridge to Success assessment. And as you can see, the last column, we did use it, and we incorporated our Washington, D.C. employment and career management figures. And then the last assessment is our MOVE database, and that's what we use to just input the progress towards the customer's goals and their action steps. Before we go to the next slide, our last polling question on how often are customer assessments completed, there's a part 2 to that question. If you would take a moment and just talk about how has this pace of completing assessments benefited the customer for you, we would appreciate that. So as we move on to the next slide, we're talking about the two-gen approach, the two-generational approach. And we talked about that earlier, but here at DHS, what we want to do is to take an approach that looks at the whole family. In the past, TANF primarily dealt with the head of the household or the parent, but now we want to address the whole family and the parents and the children needs. So this is a holistic shift for us to make sure we infuse the two-generation approach in our family-centered service delivery. As we move on, we have our final polling question. So our final polling question is, have you incorporated or plan to incorporate the two-gen approach in your coaching practices? If yes, explain how. So if you would take a moment to answer that question, that would be great. Thank you very much for that. So as we go to the next slide, we just wanted to show how TMC has already started infusing the two-gen approach in our practices. And we, like for example, for social capital, where we address assessments to learn how about the customer's family dynamics, we use the echo mapping, and we use the TCA. So some of the things we are already doing, but we want to enhance this process in the coaching learning community with ICE and Empath has helped us to expand this even more. So now we want to talk a little bit about how we keep the clinical component integrated in our coaching model. We do a lot of training here. We want it to be a continuous cycle. So we use trainings like webinars from Empath, which is executive functioning. We also do some internal training on motivational interviewing, recovery, setting boundaries, customer care, and also we strategically approach our supervision. For our supervision practices, we have one-on-one meetings with the coaching. We also do shadowing, and one of the forms that was given to you at the beginning of the presentation is a form that we use for shadowing. We're going to enhance it a little bit from what we've learned over the learning community we're in. But we shadow the coaches, we do case reviews, and which is another document that was sent to you was our case review form as well. And just to mention about the case review form, one thing that we find helpful when we do case reviews is the customers, the coaches, they list the coaching strategies that they use. So we do find that really helpful. And as you can see on the screen, that's a picture of us as we are going into our case reviews. But what we do is not only identify the challenges and the barriers, but we ask the coaches to talk about the coaching techniques they use. If it was an educational session, did you use motivational interviewing, a role play, and what did you use? So our case management and our case reviews are really a big part of what we do here with the coaching. So moving right along, we wanted to let you know that we do incentivize small steps. DHS already has in place a monetary incentivized program, but that's for the customers that meet their TANF required hours. But what we found in coaching, the customers need that push or that motivation even before they get to the point where they can get those monetary stipends. So, for example, if a customer starts GED school, they complete their orientation and complete 3 months, then they can get a school starter bag. So it's a book bag, which includes a tablet, highlighter, Post-it notes, a USB port. So we make a big deal and celebrate them about staying on the course of their goals. So we do non-monetary incentives in the coaching model. So to wrap it up, before we bring our customer in, from start to finish, this is what we hope it would look like in our coaching model. The coach is assigned. We address the barrier mediation, which is with our bridges team. If the customer is not able to move forward in training or employment, they're transferred to our bridges team where they help them do their barriers, hopefully get them some career pathways, job development, employment, and exit TANF over income. So as we move to our next slide, and we're going to prepare to bring our customer in, these are some of the things that we measure as outcomes. The caseload size, the number of customers pending sanction, because we really want to work with them and hopefully not get to the sanction part. The number of customers sanctioned, the number of customers engaged in training and employment, the customers meeting their TANF required hours, and the customers that's moving along with their goals in our MOVES database. So the program goals that we worked on for 2018, we wanted to increase our outreach by 20%. We wanted to engage our customers. We want that to be by 20%, and we wanted to acknowledge the small steps by incentives. So the lessons that we learned is that we need to take advantage of leveraging more training from other district agencies and federal technical programs. Support our staff and utilize coaching, utilize the coaching practice. We really want to support them and give them what they need. Be strategic of how we expand this and which target populations we should expand it to. And remember that the coaching approach takes a long time, but it has a stronger lasting outcome. So what we're going to do now, we're going to have our customer come in. And before we do that, Ms. Tekle is going to give you some background on the customer, and Ms. Tekle will lead her in the questions that you will see on your screen on the next slide. Sarah.
Thank you, Ms. Benson. So just to give a little bit of background about the customer that you're going to hear from, her name is Ms. Kiana White, and she has been receiving TANF for almost 10 years. She has almost consistently been in the failure to participate pit for the past 10 years. She is currently 8 months pregnant. So she is entitled to an exemption from the program, but she came in choosing to participate in this program, which I think is something that's worth mentioning. And she is now actively participating. So she's making her weekly required hours, or what her weekly required hours would be if she weren't required to participate. And she is in GED courses. She's receiving behavioral health services for a lot of her previous traumas and some of her anger management issues. And she's made a lot of progress. So we've prepared some questions for her based on her TANF experiences, and I think we're going to bring her in now to have her answer those. So we're ready. Thank you so much for being here. So I know that we discussed a little bit previously that we had a few different states on the line who are interested in hearing some of the coaching techniques that we've been using in DC government DHS. So we thought it would be nice to have a customer to come in and give a little bit of their input about their experience in the program. So thanks again for being here. And unless there's something you want to say right now, go ahead and get started. I'll jump into the first question. Okay. Is that okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. So the first question is, how has the coaching process helped you engage or participate with the TANF program?
It helps me a lot because my coach reaches out to me by sending me emails, communicating, engaging. I'm sorry. That's fine. I wrote so much stuff. Okay. Help me out by sending emails, communicating with me, reaching out to me the day before I come here just to let me know what's going on, writing things. She helped me learn how to put notes into my calendar, so I can know what days to come, what times to come to make sure I'm on time, stuff like that.
Thank you. Has this experience been different than some of your past TANF experience? And if so, could you tell us a little bit about how?
Yes, my experience has been different, way different, because you helped me as far as with my resources, as far as connecting me with the Department of Behavior Health and the Wellness Center, also therapy, and also helping me actually seeing a psychiatrist.
Okay. And you feel like those things have helped you?
Yes.
Do you find that working with your coach is worth your time? And if so, how or why?
Yes, I think it's worth my time because I know I was in a need of things, a lot of things like worked within myself. So you helped me accomplish a lot as far as like listening to me, coaching me on, letting me know when I was wrong and when I was right, as far as like when I came in and I was angry one day about a job and I put some things on my resume saying that I worked longer than what I was. To put an attitude and you let me know, well, Ms. White, you can't do that. You know, you got to put stuff, you know, you have to put right things on there. So if they was to like call and verify, it has to be right. So you helped me by doing a lot, listening, like I said, and encouraging me, and you know, just being there and caring basically about everything.
What goals has the coaching process helped you accomplish?
Getting my GED and putting me back in school, and basically helping me as far as my attitude and the stuff that I really need help with, like helping me recognize that I do really actually need to see a psychiatrist and a therapist in order for me to move on in life.
Okay. And what areas of improvement have you seen, and would you like to see moving forward?
Well, what I seen was my attitude got better. I'm more patient. I'm engaging with my therapist. And what I would like to see is me graduate my GED and go to UDC for social working and graduate.
Okay. Good. Thank you so much for sharing that, Ms. White.
Thank you.
We appreciate you coming. Thank you very much, and congratulations on owning your life and moving forward. Thank you.
I'm a little nervous.
Okay, we appreciate you.
I'm a little nervous a little bit.
So Ms. Teckley is going to take you back out.
Okay.
And thank you again.
You're welcome.
Oh, thank you, Ms. White.
You're welcome.
So that ends the presentation with coaching for DHS. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you.
Now we will move in question and answer period.
So just as a reminder to our attendees, if you have any questions you would like the presenters to address, please type them using the Q&A box that's located on the right-hand side of your screen, and they'll get those answered. So we'll take a few minutes for Q&A before we wrap up today. So we have our first question. It's from Azalea. She says, what was your biggest challenge in trying to implement coaching into your TANF program?
Okay, we didn't see it. So what was our biggest challenge in implementing coaching in our program?
Yes.
I think the biggest challenge was just adjusting from the way that we used to do it before we enhanced case management by coaching. With coaching, because the way we used to do it, we sat here and we kind of just gave the customers a to-do list. But with coaching, we actually let them lead the conversation, and we do more community outreach and home visits. So I think the biggest adjustment was changing our mindset from not directing, but doing more listening, and allowing the customers to list their goals, and we help them to learn how to develop the necessary coping skills to go after their goals.
Okay, we have another question from Ruthie. She has asked, what is your caseload size for your coaches, and did you have any challenges setting up a reasonable caseload size?
That's a good question. So the caseload size for our coaches, we base it on active and inactive customers. So we could have a caseload size of 25 or maybe even 30, but we also have inactive customers on our caseload. So our caseload, out of our caseload of 25 or 30, we may have active 10 or 15 customers. So the inactive caseload is administrative, reaching out and documenting, where the active caseload, of course, is having them come in or meeting them in the community, doing the assessments, and every 3 months updating their detailed RFP. And yes, for the second part of the question, it's sometimes difficult to align the caseload, especially if the caseload increases and the more active customers increases. So the supervisors, we try to stay on top of that so we can monitor it and as to not overwhelm the coaches.
How often would you say that you go over progress towards goals with your participants?
I'll let one of the coaches answer that. So the question is, how often do we go over progress with our customers to assure progress?
Okay, well, we do it every 3 months. A customer visits a coach bi-weekly. We discuss progress, but as it pertains to determining whether the goal is abandoned or it is to be revisited, we do that on a quarterly basis.
Thank you, Ms. Hines. And like Ms. Hines said, and if our customers are more severe or having more challenges, we meet them weekly. But otherwise, every other weekend, we revisit the goals quarterly, where we update the TANF comprehensive assessment and the MOVES database and any other assessment we need.
Okay, if we have any other questions, now would be the time to submit those last-minute questions before we wrap up for today's presentation. So we'll give it just a few more seconds. And, oh, we do have one more question from Ruthie. She said, can you tell us more about how you are doing the 2-gen work?
Okay, so more about the 2-gen work. So as I mentioned earlier, I'm going to try to go back to that slide. We purposely try to make sure that we incorporating the 5 factors in the 2-gen in what we do. For example, for early childhood development, what we do, and that's one of the factors in the 2-gen component, DHS offers child care. We do early stages, so early stages actually comes on site, that's through OSSI, and help our families with small children to get the services that they need. And we also do home visits, and while we're in the home, we assess the whole family. For economic assets, as you heard Sarah speak about, we do the Your Money, Your Goals booklet with the customers, teaching them how important it is to have a budget, understand how important it is to know where their money is going. So what we do in each area, the 2-gen approach, we try to make sure we infuse that as we go over the bridge to success with the customers, and make sure we're hitting those areas. And we not only do it for the head of the household or the TANF recipient, but for the whole family.
Great, thank you. It looks like we have another question from Sharon. She has asked, what role did your executive leadership team play in creating a coaching environment?
That's a good question. In the beginning, as we mentioned, the program manager at that time, Tamitha Christian Davis, she felt the need or had a vision to enhance our person-centered delivery model, and we researched and we found coaching. So from the onset, they've been on board and actually pushing us. So for executive level management, as we move forward the process, they work hard to get us what we need. Of course, we still have to continue to tell them our needs, to let them know where we are. And they also, but we have not received resistance from them. It's been embraced. It's been encouraged. We do our monthly reporting with them so they know exactly where we are. And that has made the process really easier by having executive management buy-in and support. And that is truthful.
Okay, it looks like that's all the questions that we've had submitted for today. So, Agnes, I don't know if you have any closing words.
No, we do not. Just that we enjoy the coaching model, and we think it's a way to just really help families to reach economic independence.
Great. Well, thank you guys so much. And I want to touch base just really quick on those files that we talked about being transferred at the beginning of the webinar. I don't know if everyone got the opportunity to download those, so I would like to take just a few moments before we close to transfer those files again. And to any attendees that would like to download these files, you will see a box pop up on your screen, and all you need to do is click on each individual file and then click the download button that's located at the top of that window, and then from there you can save off the file onto your computer or print it or whatever you'd like to do with it. So we'll take just a few moments and give you an opportunity to download these 4 files, and then we will we'll wrap this up. Okay, we're going to go ahead and close that file transfer box here in just a few moments. It looks like we've got a few people just doing some last-minute downloads. Okay. All right, well, thank you, Agnes and Jennifer and Sarah and Brenda, and to Damon. He had to step off of the call, but he wanted me to let you guys know that he appreciates everyone participating. There will be a recording available in the coming weeks of this webinar, but if you have any more, if you need more information or have any questions, please don't hesitate to submit those to your coach, who can reach out to DC's coaching team. So again, thank you all so much. We've appreciated you attending the presentation today, and this webinar will be available shortly. Thank you.
Thank you.